Good evening and welcome to NTD UK News. I'm Stuart Lees and here are today's top stories. The Business Secretary warns families face a difficult situation because of rising energy bills and cuts to universal credit. But he is confident that the UK's gas supplies will last the winter. The spiralling gas prices also hit the food industry and could lead to shortages of packaged food on supermarket shelves. And police say a third Russian man has been charged with the 2018 Novichok nerve agent attack in Salisbury. Business Secretary Kwasi Kwarteng says rising gas prices and cuts to benefits mean some families will face a difficult situation. But he doesn't expect supply emergencies this winter. NTD's Eddie Aiken has the story.
Business Secretary Kwasi Kwarteng says hard-pressed families will face a difficult winter due to rising energy bills and cuts to benefits. He says the combination of increasing gas prices and the looming £20 a week cut to universal credit present a difficult situation. Kwarteng says he has spoken to cabinet colleagues, including Chancellor Rishi Sunak, about the pressure facing households. On Monday evening, the Business Secretary told MPs the UK has clear processes in place to make sure all customers are supplied with energy.
When an energy supplier typically fails, Mr. Speaker, Ofgem appoints another supplier to take on serving the customers, and there is no interruption to supply. I reiterate, our first and primary consideration is for the customer.
Some suppliers call for the energy price cap to be removed as it means they can't pass on the increase in wholesale prices to customers. Kwarteng says, in order to protect vulnerable customers from a price spike, the cap will stay and will save 50 million households up to £100 a year.
We must ensure that the energy market does not pay the price for the poor practices of a minority of companies, and that the market still maintains the competition.
The Business Secretary told MPs the UK has a diverse range of gas supply sources with sufficient capacity to meet demand. So he doesn't expect supply emergencies this winter. The UK gets half its gas supplies from domestic production, 30% from Norway and the rest from European pipelines and liquefied natural gas delivered by ship.
There is absolutely no question, Mr. Speaker, of the lights going out or people being unable to heat their homes. There'll be no 3-day working weeks or a throwback to the 1970s.
The Business Secretary acknowledges more small energy companies may fail during the crisis, but the government will not bail them out.
There will be no rewards for failure or mismanagement. The taxpayer should not be expected to prop up companies which have poor business models and are not resilient to fluctuations in price.
The Business Secretary told the BBC the government might lend money to bigger firms, helping them take on stranded customers. Eddie Aitken, NTD News.
Soaring energy prices are causing a knock-on effect on the food industry. A complex mix of factors have led to very high costs in wholesale gas. Here's NTD's Jane Worrell with more on this.
Spiralling gas prices mean the UK's biggest CO2 producer has stopped operating. CO2 is used to package food and stun animals before they're killed for meat.
So if you have vegetables or salads or even meat wrapped in a polythene container and a plastic film over it, the gas within that will be carbon dioxide. Similarly, it's used in the slaughtering industry to stun animals before they're slaughtered. And much of that very pure carbon dioxide has been produced by the fertilizer industry. With the high gas prices, fertilizer production becomes uneconomic.
So what's caused the increase in wholesale gas prices? There are several reasons, including a demand for gas increasing worldwide as economies emerge from lockdowns, several gas platforms in the British section of the North Sea closing to perform maintenance, Europe having a lower stock level of gas than normal, and a lack of wind, meaning suppliers turning to gas.
On top of that, a fire at the National Grid site in Kent means that a power link that was used to import electricity from France to the UK is temporarily shut and will be operating at reduced capacity.
The rise in gas prices could lead to less packaged food on supermarket shelves and farmers having to cull their pigs. Jane Werrell, NTD News, London.
Today in Parliament, Defence Secretary Ben Wallace addressed a significant data breach that has compromised more than 250 people in Afghanistan seeking relocation to Britain under the Afghan Relocations Assistance Policy, or ARP.
Initial findings show that an email was sent at 17:44 hours as part of the weekly contact we maintain with ARAP, currently remaining in Afghanistan, and this was copied to all applicants rather than blind copying them. The email was immediately recalled on identification of the breach, and then a subsequent email was sent advising people to delete the email and change their addresses, many of whom have done.
Wallace apologised to those affected by the data breach and said intelligence agencies were assessing risks to their safety. He said the scheme will continue to operate and all those eligible will be relocated to Britain however long it takes. Wallace called the mistake unacceptable. So far, one individual related to the error has been suspended. A third Russian has been charged over the 2018 Salisbury poisonings. Police allege the man and his two accomplices are members of the Russian military intelligence service, the GRU. NTD's Joy Duguid has the details.
Police say a third Russian has been charged in absentia with the 2018 Novichok murder attempt on former double agent Sergei Skripal. Police say they can confirm the three suspects are members of Russian military intelligence service, the GRU. Home Secretary Priti Patel updates MPs on what she calls a shameless and deliberate act.
We will not tolerate such malign activity here in the UK. The United Kingdom, under successive governments, has responded with strength and determination.
Police have uncovered the real names of the three suspects. They are Denis Sergeyev, Anatoly Chepik and Alexander Mishkin. Police say all three men are believed to be in Russia. Britain has no extradition treaty with Russia, and Russian authorities have so far offered no cooperation.
As was made clear in 2018, should any of these individuals ever travel outside Russia, we will work with our international partners and take every possible step to detain them and extradite them to face justice.
Britain says Russia is highly likely behind the poisoning, which was followed by the tit-for-tat expulsion of dozens of diplomats. Russia has rejected any involvement.
Mr. Speaker, we respect the people of Russia, but we will do whatever it takes, everything it will take to keep our country safe. We will work actively to deter, defend against the full spectrum of threats emanating from Russia until relations with its government improves.
Skripal is a former Russian military intelligence officer. He sold Russian secrets to Britain during the 1990s and early 2000s. He and his daughter Yulia were found unconscious, slumped on a public bench in Salisbury in March 2018. They, along with a police officer, were left critically ill in hospital from exposure to the military-grade nerve agent. Another woman later also died from Novichok poisoning after her partner found a counterfeit perfume bottle. Police believe the bottle was used to smuggle the poison into the country. Joy Duguid, NTD News.
The European Court of Human Rights rules today that Russia was responsible for the 2006 killing of an ex-KGB officer. Alexander Litvinenko died after drinking green tea laced with a rare radioactive isotope. NTD's Eddie Aitken has more on this.
The European Court of Human Rights ruled that Russia is responsible for the killing of Alexander Litvinenko. The ex-KGB officer died in 2006 after drinking green tea poisoned with a rare radiotoxic substance in London. Russia denies any involvement in Litvinenko's death, which plunged Anglo-Russian relations to a post-Cold War low. A lengthy British inquiry concluded in 2016 that Russian President Putin probably approved an intelligence operation to murder Litvinenko. It also found that former KGB bodyguard Andrei Lugovoy and another Russian, Dmitry Kovtun, carried out the killing as part of an operation. The European Court of Human Rights agrees, stating, "The court found it established, beyond reasonable doubt, that the assassination had been carried out by Mr. Lugovoy and Mr. Kovtun. Both men continue to deny any involvement." The ruling further states, "The planned and complex operation involving the procurement of a rare deadly poison, the travel arrangements for the pair, and repeated and sustained attempts to administer the poison indicated that Mr. Litvinenko had been the target of the operation." According to the ruling, no attempt was made by Moscow to prove the men were carrying out a rogue operation. Neither were efforts made to counter the findings of the UK authorities. Eddie Aitken, NTD News.
Prince Andrew has been served with a sexual assault lawsuit in the United States. Lawyers for Virginia Giuffre say they sent the civil lawsuit to the prince's Los Angeles-based lawyer by email and FedEx, and both copies had been received by Monday morning. Giuffre claims she was forced to have sex with Prince Andrew while she was underage. Court papers show the alleged assault took place at the London home of a friend of convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. She also said Andrew abused her at around the same time in Epstein's mansion in Manhattan and on Epstein's private island in the US Virgin Islands. Giuffre's lawyers say this is the second time the papers have been served to the prince, the first taking place in Britain. Under federal rules, the Duke of York has 21 days to respond or could face a default judgment. Prince Andrew addressed the claims in a 2019 BBC interview. He has repeatedly denied the allegations. Still to come, the EU is discussing what a strategically independent Europe could look like. This follows the AUKUS security pact that upset France. That and more after the break. The EU expressed solidarity with France on Monday following the AUKUS pact. This comes after its foreign minister bemoaned a crisis of trust. NTD's Eddie Aitken has the story.
France's top diplomat on Monday questions whether the United States can still be trusted. The comment came after the AUKUS defense deal stung France.
There is a crisis of trust beyond the breach of the contract, as if Europe itself didn't have any interest to defend in that region. All of today, this necessitates clarifications, explanations. This will take time.
Australia cancelled a multi-billion-pound contract to buy diesel-electric French submarines. It will instead acquire US and UK nuclear-powered vessels. The Allies insisted the diplomatic crisis wouldn't affect their relations with France. This even after Paris recalled its ambassadors to the US and Australia. On Tuesday, the American president called the US-France relationship great. For the EU, the pact raises questions about its ability to provide for its own security outside the US-led NATO.
It's once more a wake-up call for all of us in the European Union to ask how we can strengthen our sovereignty. How can we stand as one even in questions related to foreign and security policy?
European foreign ministers meeting in New York on Monday for the UN General Assembly expressed solidarity with France. The AUKUS Defence Pact is widely seen as an effort to counter an increasingly assertive China. The EU Foreign Policy Chief stressed what he sees is needed in the Indo-Pacific.
The current challenges to stability in the region call for more cooperation and coordination among like-minded partners. And certainly Australia, UK and US are like-minded partners with the European Union. More cooperation, more coordination, less fragmentation.
It is still open whether the EU will delay negotiations on a future trade agreement with Australia. Eddie Aitken, NTD News.
On the Greek island of Samos, authorities evacuated about 200 migrants to a new camp on Monday. This comes after a small blaze broke out in the old camp Sunday night. This camp is to be shut down. No injuries were reported. The old dilapidated camp was originally constructed to house just over 600 people at the height of the refugee crisis in 2015. But it quickly became Greece's most overcrowded camp, with around 7,000 people living in the facility. Authorities have stressed the new camp, built to house 3,000 people, has far better facilities. Funded by the European Union, entry to the £36 million facility will be strictly supervised, with access controlled by entry cards and fingerprints. Rights groups have raised concerns about the controlled nature of the camp, with some describing it as prison-like. More than 2 years after the shocking fire that nearly destroyed it, France's Notre Dame Cathedral is finally stable and secure enough for artisans to start a mammoth restoration effort. NTD's Kwasi Kwarteng brings us this report.
Notre Dame is ready for reconstruction more than 2 years after a devastating fire tore through its roof and knocked down its spire. The government agency overseeing the reconstruction announced in a statement on Saturday that the works to secure the structure are complete. The fire in April 2019 threatened to bring the rest of the medieval monument down too. Temporary structures were needed to secure the cathedral's iconic towers, vaults and walls, as well as a special umbrella to protect it from the weather. Negotiations will now begin with companies bidding to take part in a mammoth reconstruction effort. It will include some 100 different tenders for the various projects involved. Work to restore the organ will begin in autumn, with other works expected to begin in winter. The goal is to allow visitors back inside in 2024, when Paris hosts the Olympics. The announcement was made on a weekend when countries across Europe celebrate Heritage Days, when historical landmarks and government buildings open to the public. Kwasi Kwarteng, NTD News.
Wild horses in Bosnian mountains have become a tourist attraction in recent years, but many farmers see them as pests that cause damage and deplete resources. NTD's Joy Duguid has this story.
The number of wild horses roaming the Krutsi Plateau at the foot of the Chinchar mountain has increased over the past 30 years. About 1,000 horses live on the plateau. Many were released into the wild as machines replaced them in the field. Marin Mamuza began offering adventure tours in the area in 2019.
We've seen great interest in our destination from foreign tourists. And last year, during the COVID-19 crisis, it turned out that our domestic tourists are also very interested in visiting Livno and the wild horses.
The entrepreneur sees great potential in the horses and is lobbying for their protection. He would like to see the whole area protected as a national park. But farmers say the horses hurt their cattle, destroy crops and compete with cows for water.
The wild horses drink the water, and then we have problems. If it rains, it's good. If it doesn't rain, dear God, there's nothing we can do. What is the solution? The horses may disappear, or we, the farmers, may disappear.
Varupa says he had to sell a few cows after horses hurt them. He doubts a solution can be found to the conflicting interests of farmers and horses. Local authorities previously approved a decision to protect the horses in 2009, but withdrew it in 2017 due to claims for damages. Livno Mayor Darko Chondric says his administration wants to solve the problems.
The horses have potential, and on the other hand, they are a problem for farmers who keep cattle and sheep on Chinchar mountain. Then there are pools, where a large number of horses drink the water. And during summer months, the cattle are left without water, and also horses are left without water. This is where we see a problem and where we can first act and solve this issue.
He sees potential for tourism and economy in the wild horses. Joy Duguid, NTD News.
A Russian film crew is preparing to shoot the first feature film in outer space. They have spent 3 months training for life on board the International Space Station. Here's NTD's Ana Rodriguez with more on this.
They look like any crew getting ready to travel into space, but only one of them is a professional astronaut. The other two are members of a small Russian film crew about to shoot the first feature film in outer space. But before blasting off to the International Space Station, they had to complete a grueling training program.
Мы погрузились в этот чудесный мир за эти 3 месяца.
For the past 3 months we have been plunged into this wonderful world. It was hard, it was difficult, and no time for sleep. There was time for art, but less than when you are preparing for shooting on Earth.
При подготовке к фильму на Земле.
The preparation included medical tests, learning the basics of space survival, centrifuge and vibration tests, and practicing for in-flight emergencies, and of course, zero-gravity training.
Несмотря на все трудности,
Despite all difficulties during this path, it's very interesting and satisfying. And even the thought that it could really happen is beautiful. Parasold says she will be her own makeup artist and costume designer. The veteran astronaut is impressed by his novice crew members' hard work.
For a month and a half we have had a huge number of training sessions at the station and on the spacecraft. The guys showed themselves in their best way. It is evident that they have a calling.
He will also do some acting in the film, which is titled The Challenge. It's about a doctor who is sent to space to perform urgent surgery on an astronaut. The mission is set to launch on the 5th of October. Ana Rodriguez, NTD News.
The Jacques-Marc-André Museum in Paris is showcasing the works of the Italian Renaissance painter Sandro Botticelli, inviting viewers to experience beauty, grace and harmony. NTD's France correspondent David Vivez brings us this report.
With an impressive art collection dating back to the Middle Ages, the Jacques-Marc-André Museum takes the spectator back in time. An appropriate place to celebrate 15th century Italian painter Sandro Botticelli and the beauty of his works. It took 5 years for curator Anna De Benedetti to prepare the exhibition and collect masterpieces from prestigious European museums. Botticelli played a major role in the early Renaissance.
I would invent new scenes like the mythological scenes that maybe is best known for nowadays. Feminine nudes, extraordinary religious scenes. So that was really the genius of Botticelli, how he came by to understand his time so well.
Botticelli is known for famous paintings such as The Springs or The Birth of Venus. He also introduced new techniques and ideas to other artists of his time, such as the use of perspective, the golden ratio, and how to represent nature in mythological scenes. How to represent female nudity, which stands for beauty, grace, and reflects the harmony of the world. Another more specific example is the use of gold leaf on parts of a painting to give the holy figures another worldly look. In the words of De Benedetti, he helped to bring out new ideas relating to the divine realm, how humans can perceive it, and what they should do with it.
So these type of works of art were not meant to be put into a museum, they were not meant to be decorative. They have a very specific function within the home. So it was used to be a support for a spiritual exercise. The spectator was invited to look at the model, the role model of the Virgin, of her divine role. Most of all, it's the relationship between the mother and child that is absolutely incredible and stunning. She became almost a human figure. So for the spectator, she becomes a real model, and the spectator can really focus on her and feel her so close. And at the same time, she's very distant because she's the mother of God. She's what you could describe Botticelli's touch. This way of conveying absolute grace and harmony within his figures.
Renaissance painters are known to have brought new definition of the relationship between humanity and divinity. Under the support of wealthy patrons, the quality of fine arts reached a new level. This was also made possible with the sincere wish of the artists to better their craft. De Benedetti says Renaissance artists used to copy one another out of inspiration.
You would exchange ideas, you would communicate. Most of the work were, by the way, exposed in public spaces, and there was no idea of plagiarism or imitation. There was just inspiration, and that's also the great beauty of the Renaissance in Florence.
The exhibition will last until the 24th of January. David Vives, NTD News.
That's the news for today, and thanks for tuning in. I'm Stuart Lees. Thank you for watching our daily news show on YouTube. You can also watch our other programming on channel 190 on Sky TV or on Freeview via channel box on channel 271. In the meantime though, please give this video a like and hit subscribe to our channel. Have a good day.